It was a moonless night, the kind that wraps you in darkness and leaves you feeling utterly alone. I was driving along an empty road that cut through the heart of the ancient Epping Forest in the UK. The trees loomed over me, their gnarled branches clawing at the sky. The only sound was the soft hum of my engine and the occasional rustle of leaves. I was on my way to visit my ailing aunt, who lived in a remote cottage deep within the forest. She had always been a recluse, preferring the company of her books and her cats to that of other people. But now, she was fading away, her once vibrant eyes dull and sunken. As I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The forest seemed to close in around me, the darkness pressing against the windows of my car. I turned up the radio, hoping the music would drown out my unease. Finally, I arrived at my aunt's cottage. It was a quaint little place, its thatched roof sagging under the weight of years. The windows were small and square, their panes thick with grime. The air smelled of damp wood and decay. My aunt greeted me at the door, her thin frame wrapped in a faded shawl. Her eyes were hollow, and her skin clung to her bones like parchment. She led me inside, and the air grew colder. The walls were lined with shelves, each one crammed with ancient tomes. The floorboards creaked under my weight. "Sit," my aunt said, gesturing to a worn armchair by the fireplace. "I have something to tell you." She began to speak, her voice barely more than a whisper. She told me of the forest, of its secrets and its ancient magic. She spoke of a young woman who had disappeared there decades ago, her body never found. The locals said she had been taken by the forest itself, swallowed whole by its darkness. "But that's not the worst of it," my aunt said, her eyes wide with fear. "The forest hungers. It craves the warmth of human flesh. And sometimes, on nights like this, it takes what it wants." I listened, my heart pounding. My aunt's words were madness, the ramblings of a dying woman. But then she showed me the old leather-bound book she kept hidden beneath the floorboards. Its pages were filled with drawings of twisted trees and shadowy figures. And in the margins, there were names of those who had vanished without a trace. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside, and the trees scratched at my window. I thought of the young woman, lost in the forest, her scream swallowed by the darkness. I thought of my aunt, her eyes filled with terror. I decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight and the old book, I ventured into the forest. The trees closed in around me, their branches reaching for my throat. The air grew colder, and the ground seemed to shift beneath my feet. I stumbled upon an ancient stone circle, its stones worn smooth by time. And there, in the center, was a gaping hole, a portal to another world. I stepped through, and the darkness swallowed me whole. I wandered for what felt like hours, the forest stretching out in all directions. The trees whispered to me, their voices a cacophony of pain and longing. And then, I saw her, the young woman, her eyes wide with terror. She reached out to me, her fingers brushing against mine. But before I could react, she was gone, swallowed by the darkness. I stumbled back through the portal, my mind reeling. The forest had taken her, just as it had taken so many others. And now, it hungered for me. I returned to my aunt's cottage, but she was gone. Her bed was empty, the sheets cold. I searched the shelves, but the old book was nowhere to be found. And so, I sit here now, writing this account. The forest presses against the windows, its hunger palpable. I know that I am next, that soon, I will vanish without a trace, my body lost to the darkness.